Good evening. Good evening. Hello, everyone. For everyone who will begin to come in, just want to start the evening off with some smiles as per usual. You always know who I am, but if you don't, this is Christina Vega, the founder of Love Shouldn't Hurt. Tonight, I have a special guest with me, and I'm super excited because on all of the times that I get on here and I speak, I'm always screaming "Mujeres poderosas." That's not mine. I didn't start that. So I have an amazing woman who has just as much fiera as I do, lots of energy, and she is awesome. She's in Florida. Her name is Zoe Colon. So she is coming up. She's going to join me tonight. We're going to have some amazing conversation around all things domestic violence, the imagery of women, and just everything that kind of talks about what we normally talk about, but just with a lot more energy, with a woman who's probably just as bold as I am. So we're going to have some fun tonight, folks. But before that, I think that there's something that's very important that we should all remember, something that started my organization. The reason why I decided I need to do this, I need to come out of the darkness and I need to come into the light. So tonight, I want to do what I do every year around this time. I want to remind folks why it is that I started Love Shouldn't Hurt. 2 years ago, unfortunately, on August 17th, 2018, try my best not to get emotional, but if you follow me, you know that I cry all the time. August 17th, 2018, an amazing person was taken without her permission. A friend, Linda Rios, was taken from all of us. And 2 days ago, on Monday, was the anniversary of her death. So I want to make sure, as I made a promise to her mother and her family members, that I will always remember Linda in the best light possible. I will make sure that people remember who she is. They remember her for her wit, for her smile, for her happiness. What she wanted in life was to be a mother. She wanted to be a positive person in her community. She worked at City Hall, and everyone there who came into her sight just loved Linda. Linda was an amazing individual, an amazing soul. And tonight I want to take a moment to give a moment of silence for Linda so that we can remember that who she was, we can honor her, we can pay respects to her, and we can just say a prayer for her. So at this time, I want to jump off screen and we're going to remember Linda Rios tonight with a moment of silence. Thank you guys. Again, if you're watching, we're going to have a great night. Hopefully, you guys will sit here for the ride. But while I'm at it, let me bring on this amazing woman so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. She's just as loud as I am, and I love it. Zoe!
Hello, hello, hola.
How are you, mi amor? Are you good tonight?
I'm feeling good. I do want to acknowledge your moment of silence and your loss, and thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. And I think that that's a strength. And I'm sorry for your loss, and that's why we're doing this, and that's why I wanted to be on this show because there's so many people that we have lost and are at risk of losing to domestic violence. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for coming and being here with me. I'm excited because you know what? We've interacted through Bomba Live, and every time I see you on Bomba Live, I'm like, I love her.
Oh
You're
my
like my
God, I
you're
know.
my kindred spirit in Florida.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like I know her or I should know her. And that's why I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to her separately. And so, yeah, I'm excited about, women doing shows and talking about issues, that affect us too. So, obviously this is in line with that, but also just having a moment to chat, as females, as Latinas, as Boricuas, and talking about your experiences. So, yeah, very happy to be here. And thank you again.
Awesome. So, like I told you before, and I tell everybody who comes on my show, so people must be used to me doing this, but I always have stuff to say. But this isn't a script, people. We don't sit here, we don't practice because we want to do it from the heart. We have a very open dialogue. We talk and we just make sure that we touch very important things. So, I wanted you to come on the show because, like we said, we've been kind of interchanging, but it's always been through other people or just saying it really quickly. Let's talk. So, I want to know, and I guess tell the people who are watching why it is you're so passionate about my mission of Love Shouldn't Hurt. We know that it's focused on domestic violence, but why for you was it important that you connected with me?
Bueno, growing up in a low-income neighborhood in the Bronx, I could hear, couples arguing, women being abused all the time, through the thin walls. There was violence in our community in general, and particularly gender violence. My mom is a survivor. There was violence in my household. And I remember these incidences even when I was told I was only like 2 or 3, and I remember these things, and that's the kind of impact that it has. And then after working in different roles, I ended up working in an immigrant organization and kind of walked into doing this work. And I was so afraid because I don't think anyone should be doing this work. You kind of need to be trained and you need to know what the resources are. And I think that sometimes we think we know what's best for people and we don't until we know exactly what works and what's been tried. And so I was really afraid of doing the work. And then I was like, you know what? Who better than us? We're Latinas. We know our community. Our needs are different. You know, what works for a white woman is not going to work, or for white middle class women, or even Latina middle class women won't work for undocumented immigrant. You know, so so I did that work for 5 years, and you know, I helped people move out of their homes. You know, when it was right and they were ready, and so I just kind of full circle for me, having grown up in a household, you know, where I was exposed to it, and my mom survived, you know, situations that were similar to then helping people in my career. And to me, my career is very personal because what I do is what I love, and that's giving back. So that's why when I heard about your show, I said, oh, wow, you know, this is not just a dope Latina, you know, she's also doing work to empower women. And you know, I heard, you know, you share your story at one point or the other. And I said, yeah, this is really powerful and I want to be part of it and I want to get on and I want to share and learn from you all. So.
Well, that's awesome. And you're also loud and loca like I am. So I love that too.
I am. You're building these expectations, and I feel like I have to be crazier.
No, you don't have to be crazy. It's okay. It's okay.
No,
anyone that follows me or knows me knows that I'm loud.
And you're real. And we're gonna
and I'm goofy.
And we're gonna talk about real people.
Yeah, we are. But I mean, and I know a lot of people are like, what's the WAP? Is she really gonna talk about WAP on Love Shouldn't Hurt? I sure am gonna talk about it. Because it has a lot to do.
Some people don't know what it is yet. So I would say if they don't know, they're
gonna find out.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna find out today, right? They're gonna learn today.
Yeah, they're gonna learn today. So it's amazing, you know, to have just positive individuals on and just people who kind of feel the same thing that I do. And I'm definitely excited, you know, to have you here. But before we get into the craziness and the fun of this evening, because it's going to be fun. I like Cardi, you know, like I don't think that she's nuts. I just think that she's just given us the reality of what a lot of people think. So tonight's debate, I don't want people to be like, pero ¿qué pasa? Like, why are you talking about it and downing her? I'm not downing her. We're not downing her at all.
Let's be clear. I do think she has a loose screw. Okay, she is a little nutty. Okay, so that's my opinion. So we'll go back and forth on that one.
Yeah. So see, and I think she's loca too, but I enjoy the loca a little bit because I'm like, she's saying the things other people want to say. But I feel like to a degree, tranquilízate un poco. But I love it. So that's the conversations we're getting into. So if you're here, sit back and listen because we're going to be talking about it tonight. Carlos Nunez wants to know what's wrong with it. Papi, stay there. We're going to talk about it.
Tune in.
Yeah, tune into that part. But right now, let's be serious. I want to make sure that, you know, we're clear on what it is that we're discussing tonight. And we're doing, you know, everything that's important for Love Shouldn't Hurt. So like I said, you know, I'm showing patronage to Linda Rios. You know, unfortunately, on Monday was 2 years of her passing, which is such an unfortunate thing. You know, I say it over and over again. She was taken away without her, you know, saying, I want to go. So without her permission. So domestic violence, you know, it's a situation that most women can't control. People constantly are asking, why did you stay? You know, why did you stay so long? Why did you go through it when you knew better? Which is some of the things that a lot of people say. And I always say, I do not fault anyone in thinking that, because unless you take a walk in our shoes, you have no idea what it is that we go through. So you say that your mother went through domestic violence growing up?
Yeah, she's a strong woman, you know. So, you know, this idea that someone has to be really gullible or weak to fall victim, right, to someone's abuse. And it doesn't ever start with you know, with a punch, right, on wedding day. It doesn't work that way, right? Like these things develop over time sometimes, and there's different types of abuse, as people know. So so yeah, I want to, you know, push back on that, because a lot of people in our community and across the world will say, well, why, you know, this must be a weak person, why isn't she strong enough to walk away? And that's not fair. and it's also like severely like mistaken. Like people really need to understand the cycle of abuse and the dynamics of power to understand that someone can have so much power over you that you don't even realize what's happening. I've heard stories. I did a little work with like not directly but on task force around human trafficking, and when a 15-year-old is told that she's loved by this boy on the block,
Yeah.
and he says, if you love me, you'll do XYZ, including selling your body for me. How do you judge that young person?
Right.
First of all, she's underage, and so there's a lot that has to do with like her own cognitive development and the fact that she doesn't even realize what's happening. But also, like, she truly believes that she's in love and that person loves her back. And so when we start to understand how powerful that dynamic is, right, then it's not just about, oh, you stayed and you should have known better. Very complex.
It is complex, and I think a lot of times I don't know how to fully answer the question because I've been on both sides of the track. I've lived through it for 6 years. I know how difficult it was for me to leave, and I think everyone's story is different. People leave people stay for different reasons. Some stay for fear. Some don't even fear anymore leaving, but they fear the economic stance. Like, if I leave, will I be able to afford to take care of a kid on my own?
I don't speak English. I don't work. And actually, my mom was in a similar situation, right? Because she was learning English at Hostos Community College in the Bronx and working. And, he had kind of been the primary. She always works. But, it was just, again, when you're not familiar with this country, when you don't know the language, when you're not working, like you said, financial needs, right? If you've always been a homemaker, and that happens a lot, especially in newly arrived communities, like, you didn't have to work because the male role, that was like in your family, that was normal, that they would provide and you would stay home and take care of the kids. And that's actually becoming more and more the norm because it's so hard to afford childcare, right? So people are saying, you know what? It's mejor si tú te quedas. Somebody stays home with these kids because it's so expensive to send them to daycare. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different reasons. And, again, just immigrants, depending on, have you been exposed and educated around like what's okay? And, part of what we wanted to talk about today was, the victim blaming, and
that's huge.
A lot of times people will attribute being treated a certain way porque tú te lo buscaste, tú eres promiscua, you are promiscuous. Therefore, if you are in an abusive relationship, that means that somehow you're deserving, and that's a problem in our community. And it's not just men that perpetrate that, it's women too, I have heard personally, actually, there was a woman involved in politics here. And there was a man running, and he had a history of being abusive towards his spouse or his girlfriend, including like banging her head against the car window or something like that was reported. And he was running for office, and she really wanted him to win because he was Puerto Rican. And a lot of the activists were like, well, hell no, he's an abuser, and that's not okay. We need to stand by, the female in this case, And she, in front of a ton of people, was like, esta se lo merecía. Me atrevo a apostar que se lo merecía, so somehow she deserved that abuse. So let's just put that to the side. That has nothing to do with his politics. That has everything to do with his politics.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? And that's something that I experienced during that time. And that's conversation that I've had since then as well. My best friend and I have had that conversation as well, that in our society, there's a lot of victim blaming. And that's a lot of reason why a lot of people don't talk about it. And a lot of people kind of keep it to themselves that they're going through it because they're like, if I tell them, they're going to say, oh, pues, ella lo quería. I had family members, sadly, and friends that when I started this mission, actually, and I say friends, let me say acquaintances, because your friends don't see you in that light. Your friends, get it.
Right.
So acquaintances who saw me do this and they're like, you really going to do this? Like, you're going to tell people your business? You're going to tell people that you lived through this? And then I have other people that behind my back said, well, she stayed. I mean, if she stayed, then clearly she wasn't bothered by it. She must have liked it if she stayed. And that's the problem with the society we live in. People think, oh, pues, ella se quedó. ¿Será que que le gusta? No, that doesn't mean that, and that's what I say. There's so many reasons why people stay in these relationships. Nobody wants to get beat. Who wants to get beat? Who wants to to, if you're not getting beat, who wants to be spoken down to? Who wants to be degraded as a woman, like woman or man? Because I've always said with, love shouldn't hurt. It's not just a female thing, domestic violence.
That's right.
And, when you and I had that conversation on the phone, we said so many things kind of intertwine. Rape. Women get raped. And if she's a woman who goes out and she's at the club y siempre tiene la falda escotada, or she has her dress really, you can see her boob or her cleavage, and then they find out she get raped. So you should see the way she gets dressed.
What I was thinking about today is I was thinking about what to talk about on the show is the Puerto Rican Day Parade. So it's interesting because I've gone often enough in New York, right? So there's millions of people there, obviously. And, even in Orchard Beach in the Bronx, like there would be young men in the 90s with signs and they would rate you as you walk by, right? So that's one example.
Yeah.
They also went to the extent of having water guns. So like if you were really like
sure.
a 10, then they would, so that's that, talking about WAP. And then there's, in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, I remember all this controversy around, like women being grabbed, being harassed on the street. And usually the comeback, especially from people in our own community was, well, why was she wearing a bikini top? And I think that that's maybe a good, way to kind of like transition to, what we wanted to talk about too with the imagery, right? Like, if she's walking around in poom poom shorts and a bikini top, then she's deserving of unwanted touch. Then clearly she must want the attention, and we have to strike a balance as females, right? Like I'm very conscious of what I wear. I am, that doesn't mean that I look up, down upon people who are not. I'm just saying that I don't want attention, unwanted attention, so I'm very cognizant that, I might, wear something a little tight or whatever, but I don't usually show a lot of cleavage. You can see, okay, I'm a little more conservative in that sense, but that doesn't mean that I'm less, free about, my sexuality or, liberal, it doesn't mean that I'm less liberal, and certainly the opposite. When someone is showing a lot of skin doesn't mean that they're ready to jump in the sack with you. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It reminds me of como es Ivy Queen, no quiere decir para la cama voy. It's like, dude, we're not going home together just because I'm showing cleavage,
Right. Yeah, I think imagery of women is super important. Going from domestic violence to this, and like we said, they all coincide. I think it's super important because, like you said, let's put it that way. We're going to talk about WAP, but let's put it like that. So I like Cardi B. There may be things that I may not agree with at times, but I like her because she's open, she's honest. She's not going to let anybody tell her you can't say this. She's going to be who she is. But it doesn't mean that because she's in these videos and she's, with this out or with that out, I don't want to say all of that, but if she, just because she's showing, it doesn't mean that, oh, well, I'm going to have to see her tonight. I'm going to get her in the bed. It's going to be that easy. No, she's doing what she's doing because she's trying to make money. She got a husband. She's trying to make the money. I, on the other hand, I'll say by my clothes, I code switch. Now we know what code switch means, Bella. Like, I can be ghetto when I want to be ghetto, but I can also be presentable and be professional when I'm supposed to. Right. So I go to work every day. I'm a school counselor. Clearly, I'm not going to work with my boobs out. I'm not.
Don't advise that.
Right. Yeah, I don't advise that. But when I go to the club and I dance salsa, I'm not bearing it all out.
Yeah.
But I dress. I am okay with my body. So I do dress nicely, and I dress, in a way that I think is sexy because that's just who I am. It doesn't mean that I welcome unwanted attention. It doesn't mean that I'm asking for someone to touch me on my ass or to feel me up. I'm doing it because I'm confident and this is what I choose to wear. But people believe that the imagery of who you carry is just who you are. That's it. Oh, if she's putting a picture up and you can see her boobs, then she must be a slut. She must be a hoe. And I don't think that defines who you are. If you're comfortable in your skin, you decide you want to wear something a certain way. It doesn't mean he raped me, but I asked for it because when I went to the club last night, I had my boobs out, So that drives me crazy when people do that. We have a lot of comments. This subject is touching here. Hold on, because Carlos is still in our conversation. That's my boo. I love him. Look, he said, yes, it takes more than a shot or a drink at the bar. Definitely. Because you know what? People see people in certain lights. Right. People will see you at the bar, and that's a lot of the mindset of men and women. I bought her un traguito, so she, maybe she'll take me out, or maybe she'll let me walk her to her car tonight. Maybe I could feel her up, because they think that that's okay, and it's not.
Ex that he was straight from the island. Well, I can't even call him an ex, but he was like someone I dated for a while, and on and off. And I remember we used to see each other at the Copa all the time. I love to dance, girl. Like, that's my thing. And people have judged me for that, like, all my life. Esta no se cansa de bailar y siempre está saliendo en los clubs. And I wasn't there to go home with anyone. I just love to dance until today. And I actually missed that a lot from New York City. Like, I just love to dance. I love to dance salsa. I love to listen to music. I'm not going to stand at the bar and get blasted, because I'm there to dance. And that's what I love. And so anyway, I remember him like really judging me for being like a club goer. Hey, Beverly, and she was with me. Bevy was with me.
Yes, that's why she gets it.
She was there. I didn't know she was gonna tune in, so that was a nice surprise. Girl, you were there, and so and you know who I'm talking about too, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. DH. I'm just gonna say DH. So anyway, he would like, tú que siempre está en los clubs, I can't take you seriously. You're not a woman to be taken seriously. Meanwhile, I have a master's degree, I'm doing my thing, and I think I'm a good catch. But in his eyes, because I was out dancing all the time, like I wasn't someone that he could take seriously. And that's really unfair. It's unfair because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, and females do this too. It's not just males. When a mom or a primita, tells a little 2-year-old, oh, you're going to kill those little girls out there. You're already starting to condition that little boy to think like a little Casanova. You know what I'm saying? You're already like shaping those gender norms. Like, tú vas a estar acabando, nene. He's two. But we're starting to talk about sexuality in some ways. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a problem. So it's not just males. And I just want to say that very clearly. And we do that, right? We start shaping norms. We start prescribing what's acceptable behavior for a good woman. Una mujer de la casa, una mujer de la calle. And then la mujer de la calle is deserving of violence, of sexual assault, of being ostracized by their own community, by other females. You know what I'm saying? And it's very unhealthy, and it's a cycle. So we're part of that problem too, females.
We are. And we're part of that problem as females, as males together, like not just one sexuality. And it's crazy because, oh my God, I wish the show was longer than just an hour. I could keep going on about this because I get
cover.
There's so much to say because look, where he's at, Eugene. So Eugene says abuse comes in many different ways. Let's not forget the mental aspects of it as well. That is 120% correct, because besides the fact that women are getting raped, women are getting beat, men are getting stabbed, by the women, because women abuse too. There's the mental aspects as well. So también, what I used to deal with when I was with my abuser, he may not have gone 2 or 3 days without hitting me, but the days that he didn't hit me, it was, that's how you dress to go out.
Mm-hmm.
You look like trash when you go out.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you're not good enough of a woman. That's why I don't stay with you. Like what you said, oh, well, ella una mujer de la calle. I've never been a mujer de la calle. But those were the things that he would embed in my head. You're worthless. You dress like that. You're trash. And those things I say to all the time have a more lasting effect than abuse does being punched or hit. Because I could have my jaw broken. I could have my arm broken. But you telling me that I'm worthless and telling me que yo no sirvo para nada, and you're lucky that I'm with you, even if I cheat on you, because at least I'm here. Those are all mental things que se quedan en la calle. That was control that he had too, like I walk out and I'll wear something that he doesn't agree with. So he's like, you're a whore. You're this, you're that. And then while I'm at the club, that's what I'm thinking about. Or while I'm on my drive to work, that's what I'm thinking about. Mental abuse.
You should have known better. And if you should have known better, even when you internalize that thought process, that means that if he did physically hit you, then you're almost like justifying it. Well, I already knew he was going to do this because I knew that wearing that outfit was going to piss him off. So I know I did wrong, right? And instead of thinking like he's wrong to think this way, period, right? So that's kind of like that cycle,
Yeah.
And it is none of it is without the psychological abuse, right? Someone has to have a psychological hold on you in order for you So it starts with that, because in order for you to stay and rationalize it, I'm not victim blaming. I'm saying rationalizing it as it won't happen again, or he must have been angry, or I must have done something wrong. Like that's how you start rationalizing it, because you love this person and you want to make it work. So that starts with psychological abuse.
Oh yeah,
And that power that they have over how you think about yourself and your role in that relationship.
definitely. I mean, there were times, people who've seen the documentary and people who've read the book know that I had what I say in the book as my moment of, today I'll kill him. This is the moment that I'm going to kill him. You
Girl.
know, he didn't even have to hit me. That mental control that he had over me was enough.
Well, like this.
Yeah. And like leaving the gun sitting on top of the kitchen table. He didn't have to hit me, because in my mind, I already knew, if I move, this man could shoot me. If I say something he doesn't like, he can shoot me. So all he did was, let me put it right there, para que ella sepa. If you want to get, out of control, or you want to say something I don't like, remember what's sitting on top of the table. So the mental control that they have over you, and the emotional. He would hit me, and then after he would hit me, he would just look at me, and he would see me crying on the floor, and it's like, what are you crying for? You knew that was coming. So what are you upset about? Keep your mouth shut and I won't do it. Like, they have control over you in ways that you can't even imagine. And going back to the beginning, people say, well, why did she stay? ¿Será que le gustaba? No, I didn't like it. But I have all these other aspects. He didn't hit me today, but he reminded me that the gun was sitting on top of the table before I walked out of the house. So in my mind, it was like, I ain't saying nothing to him. I'm not going to talk to him. And people, well, you should have left when you walked out. This is what I heard a lot of times. Well, you were being abused at home. So when you walked out from work, why'd you go back? This is my apartment. If I leave, I'm leaving him in my place.
Well, when I did this work, I remember the average number of times that it takes, on average, is 8 before people actually successfully leave. And overwhelmingly so, disproportionately so, it's usually women who are, being abused. So I usually say she, but I know it's everyone.
Right.
Pero it takes about 8 times, and every time that you try, it increases the chances that there might be a homicide.
Yes.
So, every time that person, no, imagínate, he leaves the gun. That's on a normal day. Imagine if you actually try to leave and he finds out about it.
Yeah.
So every time you try to leave that situation, if you're not, God forbid, like if you're not successful, and it's so hard to be successful to leave that person, so it's not as easy as people think. I don't want to out my mom's story too much, but there was a time when we were on the run. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not as easy as, oh, okay, today it ends, and I'm gonna put a order of protection. Yeah, y se acabó, because the police. Let me tell you, I've seen the police witness a bunch of stuff and have not stepped in when they should have, or they arrested the wrong person, or I mean, it can become very messy with domestic violence and the law, right? So yeah, there, and so I wanted to make a comment about something that you were talking about. Oh, so that aspect of like, this person is deserving is really dangerous in our community. And I think that that's part, especially with sexual assault también. We don't talk enough about that. And that's one of the things that I brought up, is that if you're in an abusive relationship, whether it be physical or psychological, I mean, you tell me, and I don't want to, trigger anyone, but how many times are you having consensual sex with someone who just punched you in your face? Yeah. So, I mean, tell me where does consent come in when you're unhappy, you're being emotionally abused or or physically? Like, how can you possibly consent fully? You may not fight that person off because you're in a relationship with them. Right. So, so there's different, kind of variants of consent. Yeah. Pero, at the end of the day, it's marital rape. It's rape in that relationship, and we don't talk about it enough.
And I left Eugene's comment up there for a reason. And it kind of coincides with everything that you're saying. It's the control that the person can have on their victims. It's actually their self-esteem for the individual. Oh, my words just mixed up because I'm just like, whoop, let me get through it. But that was the biggest factor of how I was able to deal with the abuse for so long, and he was able to control me for so long, because my self-esteem was crap. He knew that, and he played on it. He played on the fact that he knew that when I looked in the mirror, I thought I was fat. I thought my teeth were ugly. I thought I was just not worth any man wanting me? And all of this, like I said, goes together because I would also, I'm sure everybody watching it is an adult. I would also have sex with him. Did I want to? No, I didn't want to. But in my mind, he knew I can make her feel like shit. I can make her feel like nobody else is going to want her and I'll get what I want. So he knew I thought I was worthless. So he would tell me all the time, do it with me. Nobody else is going to touch you. You know, I had no self esteem. So in my mind, I'm like, this is all I got. You know, I say that all the time too. I stood because I thought, at least I have someone. I'm a young girl. I'm straight out of college. You know, you got your own apartment. You want to flex. You want to be like, woo, I'm grown. But you want a boyfriend because all your friends have a boyfriend. And you're thinking, he beats me up, but you know what? Nobody else is going to want me. He's right. I'm fat. He's right. My teeth are ugly. Nobody's going to be with me. So because I had no self-esteem, I allowed him to control me for so long. And, you know, I say this all the time. And oh my God, I feel like all of this is just kind of together. But like you said, I had sex with him and I might have never said no. But while it was happening, it was dark. He couldn't see me. I was crying the entire time sometimes because all I was thinking in my mind was him being on top of me felt like rape because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to have sex with this man, but I felt like I had to because I was in the relationship with him. And if I decided that I didn't want to, well, we go back to in my mind. There's a gun on top of the table.
Well, that's
So
why
I
they
have to.
say that no is not enough anymore.
Yeah.
It has to be yes is yes, right? And
Yeah.
so the fact that someone, you know, and there's a whole lot to unpack here, girl. Like we could be here for 2 hours, and I'm happy we could do this again. I hope we. But yes is, you know, an affirmation, right? So asking for a yes is much more of a confirmation than saying, well, she didn't say no, you know? So I think, and there's different ways to interpret, you know, some young people, or not just young people, any age really, let me stop myself, but, you know, will say, well, yeah, she said no, but she really wanted it, you know, or she was just being, you know, playing hard to get.
Mm-hmm.
So they always, I mean, now a lot of activists will say yes is yes. Yes means yes, that you really need that affirmation.
Right.
Like, are you okay with this touch? Are you okay with what we're doing right now? You know, do you feel comfortable? Like that's a way to do it. And I know that sounds super crazy to some people because they're like, espérate, we're going to be in the heat of the moment and all of a sudden we'll be like, are you okay? And I get that, right? Because it kind of kills the vibe. But I think it's important. I think it's important because you just need to make sure that that person is consenting, you know, consenting to what you're doing, feeling comfortable. And, you know, it's hard to do in the heat of the moment, but that's really important. So, you know, and back to what you were saying, you know, that's why I have a problem with a lot of the whole abortion issue, you know, and that splits a lot of communities, especially like folks that are super, you know, into their faith and everything. I don't think you need to be in an abusive relationship as a female to not have control of your body, because we're still conditioned as females, especially, you know, in certain communities, that your role is to please that man. And we're gonna get to CARDI real soon. We're gonna fast forward there because it's because you're supposed to have a WAP and you're supposed to, you know, dress a certain way. And you're supposed to do X, Y, Z in bed so that they stay, because you're supposed to do it all. You're supposed to be all women. And so I think first of all, it sets us up to fail, right? And anyway, I forgot where I was going with that, but you know, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought because there's so much to say about that. But yeah, so you know, we set the bar high for what we're supposed to do as females to please our partners. And so even if you're not in an abusive relationship, you know, and you're in a quasi healthy relationship, you don't always say no when you don't want to have sex. You know, and let's just be real, you know, whether you have a PhD, whether you know, the whole joke, or, you know, you see in the novelas or in old movies about having a headache. Ay, tengo un headache. I have a headache tonight. I can't, honey. Where do you think that comes from? That's, you know, the constant struggle of like, I'm not in the mood, but I'm going to make an excuse for it because my role is supposed to be to please that person. And it doesn't have to be just females, but it often that it's females that feel that way, right? But it happens in both. So I think that that's important, that, you know, even if you're in a healthy relationship, a lot of women don't negotiate sex in terms of when, how often, and if it's protected or not. Let's just be real, you know? Like, oh, we've been in a relationship. I think he stepped out on me, but if I ask him to wear a condom, then I'm accusing him, and then it's gonna start some shit, right? So let's just be real, you know? So there's a lot of a lot of conversation that needs to happen, and a lot of education before we can, kind of fast forward to, should a woman be able to do XYZ with her body? Well, let's talk about whether she has control over her body to begin with. Okay. Yeah. And the way that we construct gender norms and how we shape our views and our values around gender and prescribe those roles really don't allow women to be really honest about what they want and what they don't want. And guess who is honest though? Cardi. So there's a lot to, and I don't want to get too serious, but it is true, like this whole debate with abortion. I'm like, let's just talk about women's bodies and how we're made to feel guilty if we don't want to do this or that. You know what I mean? Or if we don't want to hang off the chandelier, like, how about, we keep it simple one night? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of expectations. And I think in this society where there's a lot of access, the YouTube videos and the music videos, and the more I think sexual freedom we find in music and in media and in pop culture, that there's a higher bar, for what's supposed to happen in the bedroom, for what women are supposed to look like, and all of that, right? So it's unfair to us.
So if you're just tuning in, I see people coming in and out, but if people are just tuning in, I want to just do a reminder there of what it is that we're doing here. So people follow me. People know what Love Shouldn't Hurt is. We know that I commit myself to domestic violence. So tonight I wanted to have an open-ended discussion. I want to make sure that we don't always stress one thing, but that we remind people of other things, because there are definitely other forms of violence. Like she said, in couples, there's rape, there's, intimate partner violence, there's domestic violence, there's emotional abuse. There's so many different things. And I think, like I said, it's like you said, and like I said, it's not just a woman thing. It's not just a male thing, because abuse happens on both forms. And when we talk about abuse, we talk about a lot of different things. So tonight we're talking about domestic violence. We're talking about the imagery of women. We're talking about, just what society believes who we are as women and men. And we're also going to end the show talking about Cardi. Not that we're downplaying her. And I want to remind people who are here, we're not downplaying her, because I listen to her in my car. But we're also just, I think that song was important for us to just bring it up. Zoe's idea to talk about it. But I think it's actually awesome to do so, because you know what? We listen to songs sometimes, and Carlos made a point in one of his comments that, men do it. Men do videos and they just talk about what a woman should do to them and how they should do it to them and things like that. So why not let a woman do it? So I think, we're going to play devil's advocate here. Someone who likes Cardi, and then Zoe could be the other person who's against it. We're talking about a lot. We're talking about a lot of different things, but I want to touch on a comment that Carlos put up, because I think that that's super important too. And it's long. I hope we can see it. We can. It covers us, but I see it. How about the women that criticize Jennifer Lopez and abuse her because she believes in love and firmly believes when one door of happiness closes, another door opens? Let's discuss when women are the first ones to throw rocks at other empowered women. Now, I don't want to move it, Carlos, because it's a good question, but I got to move it because you can't see us. That's super important, especially with this, and going back to the beginning of victim blaming, because there have been women who have told me to my face, now that I'm doing Love Shouldn't Hurt, that what I'm doing isn't powerful, but what I'm doing is putting my business out on the street, and it's crazy how much support you can get from men who know why I'm doing this and what the reason behind it is. And you would think, oh, women are supporting women. They don't. There's a lot of women who think that it's wrong for me to do what I do. They criticize me for doing what I'm doing because they say that, like I say over and over again, lo que pasa en la casa se queda en la casa. But people don't realize that from opening this door and being empowered and trying to do what it is that I want to do with this, it's allowed me to help a lot of other women. So do women step on women? And they criticize J-Lo. Of course, I read her book. And when I read her book, it was like, wow. I think I was guilty of that for a little bit, because we see J-Lo con diferente hombre and we're like, ¿qué le pasa a esa mujer? And I love J-Lo. And, you see it and you're like, damn, she got a different man all the time. But then you read her book and you get a different picture if you haven't read her book. And it shows what she went through with different people. Like, it's a good book. It's a really good read. After I read it, I was like, oh my God, her and Mark Anthony split up and the blame was pushed onto her. Well, she liked to be with different men. But then you read the book and you see that wasn't it at all. My girl wanted to love and make a family he chose to leave. He's the one, that said, no, I'm done with this relationship.
And wasn't he kind of controlling? Like
He was
super.
very controlling over her. He was very controlling over her, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy because we follow him, we love him. We're like, no, that's my man, Salcedo, he's the man. But guess
Mm-hmm.
what? He was very controlling of her. He may not ever hit her, but like Eugene said, it's the control they have over them. If you read her book, you see that, controlling about the way she spoke to people in the public and what he wanted her to be able to express to the public. And I don't want people to know everything. The book is phenomenal. And Carlos is a number one J-Lo fan. So I know he read it.
Didn't know she had a book. I'm such a bad J-Lo fan. Dios mío.
Yes, and it is awesome. The book is amazing. If you read it, you'll be like, woo. So listen, when you get off of here, look it up because the book is awesome.
I mean,
But he
I've always
was
supported
super
her.
controlling.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I had heard that, and and so that's one, and there's a few things, right? Like she believes in love, she's a romantic, and so she should be allowed. The problem is that her life is public, and so unfortunately, people are going to hear about it, So there was part of me that at times, and I'd be like, okay, J-Lo, can we wait? Can you not get the ring yet? Can you wait a little longer? Can you not have a wedding right now? Like just hold off a little longer. But I never thought that. I don't know. I was never shady towards her. Like, oh, esa es una de esto, whatever. Like, I never put a label on it. It was more about try to be careful about what you expose, but it's so hard when you're a celebrity, But I think my girl J-Lo, I love her, and I think she's a strong, independent woman, and I think that that's hard for a lot of men to swallow, especially, if you grew up in a household where the man was supposed to be the breadwinner, the man is the one that makes decisions for that household, and so you have a Mark Anthony that maybe grew up in that way. A machita, and then you got a J-Lo who's like, I probably make more money than you, boo. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. Like, of course there's going to be conflict, And so then she moves on to the next one. Then you had Casper, and he was like 12. You know what I'm saying? Of course that's not going to work because she made a song about it. He was like playing video games, and she's trying to make some money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
she's an empowered women. But you know what? That's the thing. People don't see that, And if you read the book, you may see Mark in a different light. Now, she was given permission to write the book, so he knew that she was going to say it. So these are not secrets. These are not things people do not know. But he, like Carlos said, he was, down to the movies, what song she sang, how she dressed, he was very controlling. Ralph says Mark has gotten a pass for his behavior for a long time. As a father, him having kids and leaving 3 different households bothers me. Your kid should always be first. Seriously, but we fail to think about those things because it's Mark Anthony. We love Mark Anthony, I love his song. I love this. I love that. But he was a man who was guilty of it. He may not ever put his hands on any of those women, but the way that he treated them, the way that, he made them feel, listen, mentally, like Eugene said, the control that they have on you. And people think domestic violence is just hitting someone. And I hear that all the time. I have friends who go through relationships that are shady. And I've been guilty of that. So let me not just say friends. I've been guilty of that. I've been in a lot of shady relationships.
We all have, girl.
That I sit there and I say, well, he don't hit me. And no me da. But he might tell me I need to go to the gym because, that's not how a woman should look. Mm-hmm. So then I live with that in my mind every day. Like, oh my God, like, I don't want to wear that dress because I probably look bad in it. He told me that, or I'm with a man who may not hit me, but he makes me feel less of a person. Everything I do is not good enough. You know what I mean?
You bring that up because it reminds me, I have a few friends, actually. It's not just one. I have a few friends, where they're saying like, oh, I'm dating someone, but he keeps bringing up my teachers. And I'm like, okay, if somebody want to grab your love handles and make a little joke here and there, and say it with love, and and you have the kind of relationship where that that's not, and so he's not saying it in that way, whatever. But when they're constantly bringing it up, that's a problem, you know. But the people that I often find are accepting of that in some ways, and again, I'm not trying to blame the victim here, are often people that had upbringings where they were also subject to that kind of underestimation or criticism from their parents, right? And so like my mom, a single mom, a survivor, en mi casa no faltaba amor. My mom to this day, right? And you could be as poor, you could be eating, hot dogs every day, once a day for a month and be that poor and be home. But if you have love, you can still raise a decent human being, and I think that a lot of times when parents don't know how to love, because I'm going to say don't know how to love, because it's not fair to blame people for how they parent. I don't think that's fair. But there's a ton of issues with the way that we're brought up and the expectations of us, and parents who talk down to their kids and make them feel a certain type of way. Because that's the same little girl, you know, the one that you said stop eating because you're fat, who now thinks it's okay for the boyfriend or the whatever he is to say that, you know, make fun of your chichos all the time.
Yeah.
It comes from your upbringing and your self-esteem, as someone said earlier, you know?
Yeah. So again, if you're
Carlos is having fun.
He is.
Carlos
needs to be on the screen with us because he's hilarious. He will have you laughing from start to finish. My boy's crazy.
I love it. Yeah, I don't need to get too serious, but these are things that I'm passionate about. So I'll try to keep it light from here on.
So listen, again, if you're tuning in, you know, we've talked about a number of things and the time goes by so fast. It's already been 45 minutes, but listen, it's my show, so we can be on as long as I want.
Okay, let's do it.
Hopefully people will listen. We won't keep you that long, people.
No, Nana, please, I'm enjoying myself. As long as we have people listening, I'm cool. We can stay on. Hey, Christine. I agree, Zoe. She put the name. I love that. Thank you so much for doing that.
So listen.
And I promise this is just Red Bull. This is not, it's just Red Bull. Not Red Bull and vodka, which is could be at 7:45 p.m., but it's not. So
Carlos just raised a good question. So I'm gonna put that up next when we get into Cardi. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm gonna pull that up. He got a good question, but I'm not gonna hit it yet. So if you just got on, because our numbers keep going in and out and I'm loving it, people are interacting. This is what my show is about. You know, I don't want to be as structured because I want to make sure that we touch on things that people just love. But I want people to know, you know, your friend said you lying, you drinking something else. I don't know.
Oh, Beverly, you know me so well. No, I promise I didn't drink because this is the kind of topic that it could get real raunchy real fast. So I was like, let me not drink any alcohol so that I could still, you know, if I wanted to run for office in 5 years, that, you know, no one
could show up.
Girl, I mean, like, remember that WAP video that Zoe Colon did?
So if you guys are watching, it's been 45 minutes of me cracking up because Zoe's funny. But we have talked about how everything coincides: domestic violence, the imagery of a woman and a man, because let's face it, it's not just women, rape, sexual abuse, everything. I think that these are all important topics that all coincide: emotional abuse, financial, just all of the things that kind of keep us where we are. I stayed for 6 years and there was a number of reasons why I stayed: fear and all of the above.
You shouldn't get to justify that for anyone.
No, I know, but people have their different reasons. So I'm very open about my situation. I'm very open about why I stayed. You know, there's still people who wonder why I do what I do. We've talked about victim blaming. We've talked about people who are women and offend other women. We've talked about so many things, and we can keep going because this is what I do. I just love to continue to just talk about things that empower me, to just keep us motivated. But the topic of our show was, what about that WAP? So we're going to talk about Cardi, because I think that Cardi is just a topic, a subject. She is someone out there that, listen, through each of her songs and just even the things that she's lived, because I believe, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I believe that she originally left the guy that she's still married to. Forgive me if I don't know his name, because I'm not into, you know, I'm not into I'm gonna start saying I listen to mostly Spanish music in my car. Let's be real. But my daughter is into everything, so I hear Cardi too. But I believe she originally had left him because of cheating.
Right.
And you know, she decided, you know, she was done with that, and now they're back together. So everybody has their different reason. Not downing Cardi, she's hilarious. But let's get into that WAP. You know, people don't know what it is, right? I'm gonna let Zoe tell you what it means.
Oh my God. Well, I think if you don't know what it is by now, you should definitely Google it. Okay.
that's the chicken way out.
WAP. Okay. It stands for wet ass pee. And it has to do with the vaginal canal.
She running for office in the future.
But this is gonna come back. But this is an important topic, and that's the thing, right? Like you and I think I could be wrong, but I think we're super relatable and we can talk about it and we navigate different worlds. You know, like you said, you're a school counselor and we got a code switch, and this is us being ourselves. And at the end of the day, this song is out and it hit #1 on the billboards yesterday, the day before. And no matter how conservative your family is, no matter if you go to church every Sunday, your kids probably know this song, even if you don't, okay? And they're listening to the lyrics, which are very explicit. So then Carlos wanted to clarify. Thank you so much.
And this is a no holds back. Like, I'm very open with this thing because I want to be relatable. So it didn't come out of your mouth. So if you're running for office, future tense, no, she didn't say it. He said it for her.
Carlos Nunez, go find him. No, and listen. No matter what happens in my future, and I'm not running for office. That's not on my mind right now. But you know how these things tend to, especially for women of color, and that's one of the reasons why you and I had a conversation about Cardi B, right? Because it's important for us to understand that whether we love her or not, that middle America sees us in her. If someone from the Midwest who doesn't have access to, who does not surrounded by Latinos, who's never met, a person of color, vamos a decir, and only sees a Cardi B, I think that's fine, except that that's not me, And so I'm not hating on Cardi B. I'm just saying, like, I'm not as open, I'm not as uncensored. And I also worry that given that and again, I'm getting too serious, but I worry that given like the political power that we should have, and the fact that we're the fastest growing demographic, that people should be able to see a lot more of the positive role model, not just positive, but different types of role models in our community, because she is a positive role model to a lot of young people. So I just want to make sure that it's balanced. And when she comes out with WAP, it was like, wow, she really went there. I was like, wepa, all right, point of no return, girl. But you think about Madonna, who just turned like 62, who looks great, by the way. When she did, what is it, like a virgin, y también hizo like a prayer, where it was kind of like hypersexualized, involving religion and yo no sé qué. And she was very daring, and she was a big risk taker for that time, and we forget about that. So I think Cardi B is our Madonna times 5 with a WAP, girl.
Yeah, 2020.
2020 version of like a virgin.
That's right. So I want to answer this question. There's so many comments coming up. I just wanted to make sure that I touched on this. So Juliana, welcome. Thank you for coming here and supporting us. Love Shouldn't Hurt began 2 years ago. It started with myself just kind of being empowered to come out of the darkness. I was in a relationship of domestic violence for 6 years. I was nearly killed. And I hid from that for a very long time. And after a friend was killed by her husband, I decided to come out of that darkness and come into the light and share my experiences so that I can help others through just advocating for women and men and families who have lived through domestic violence. So you've come on in a very interesting show. It's your first time, so you're coming on and you're like, what is going on? So weekly or bi-weekly, whenever we come on, what we talk about is normally domestic violence. That's all we talk about. We talk about organizations sometimes who help those with domestic violence. We talk about just living through domestic violence. We give people resources. But tonight we wanted to make sure that not just talking about domestic violence, we talk about a lot of other different things, because when I'm on here, a lot of people, a lot of times bring up a lot of different subjects. They're like, let's talk about women. Let's talk about how you're empowered. Let's talk about the image that women portray, because, sadly, I've also taken slack for doing Love Shouldn't Hurt. And like Zoe said, there's a lot of victim blaming. So people will blame because of the clothes that I wore. That's why you got smacked. Or because of how I said something. That's why I was smacked. So tonight's show is talking about a lot of different things on a lot of different levels. We're talking about the imagery of women, and we thought that we would, since we're on that subject and we're talking about sexual abuse and things like that, that we would talk about Cardi tonight. Cardi is a hot topic for a lot of people right now, especially with the new song. And she pretty much is empowering some women to say, I do whatever I want to do.
That's
now,
right.
We're not saying that she's wrong. I'll keep reminding you, we're not saying that, because she went from one way to another way, and I think that for some women, these are the things that they want to say, but they don't. And Cardi is not letting anybody tell her, you can't say that. She don't say what she want to say.
And I want to acknowledge Carlos's point, that it's not her responsibility to be a positive role model. And I think one of
right.
her, and I agree. So one of the, I worry when she's the only or one of like a handful of Latinas that the average American sees and thinks that everyone is that liberated. Let me say it that way, right? Pero you're absolutely right. And it reminds me of a video that she did on La Mega in New York because someone asked her, and it was in Spanish, and her Spanish is a little broken, so it was hilarious. And they were like, well, what do you say, you know, to a parent, you know, who doesn't want their kids? And she's like, well, it's not my responsibility, in Spanish, in broken Spanish. You know, it's their responsibility to parent their child, not mine. You know, so I completely agree with that. And you're absolutely right to check me on that, Carlos. I just worry that, especially with, you know, like the political scene, with our growth in this environment, with the anti, you know, the racist and anti-immigrant sentiment in this country, that people only see a Cardi B. I want them to see many more, you know, aspects of our community. And unfortunately, the only thing that gets sensationalized are things that, you know, may not be seen as positive. You know what I'm saying? So that's my only reservation. But I applaud her, you know. And I mean, J-Lo ended up doing this like risque movie on, you know, strippers. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think that was awesome. You know, a group of us went to see it, and it is very empowering, right? And you have someone like J-Lo who's a little more mainstream, if you will. You know, she's crossed over in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. And she was in that. She was featured, you know. So it kind of helped, you know, legitimize and help people really understand and see like that this is an industry, this is a business, whether you like it or not, you know, and tell those stories. So I think that was important.
He said, I wasn't checking you, honey. When it comes to positive Latinas such as Gina, J-Lo.
And people are so hard on Gina. I think she just made a movie with, not just, she made a movie like where she had like an African American, like a black partner, and they were like criticizing her for that role, or maybe how she interacted in that role. And it's like, it's hard, right? Because we're just trying to, you know, kind of make it. And, you know, it's hard when you always get criticized. And it's back to that point, you know, that we're our own worst enemy sometimes. So,
yeah. Teresa Fetzer says, but famous folks do play a role in our youth lives, no matter what they are taught at home, which I think kind of goes with Zoe's comment. Again, I don't go against her or say that she shouldn't do what she does, because listen, if I'm empowered to do something and I'm gonna do it. Listen, lo que pasa, pasa, I'm gonna do it. But there are people who are at home with kids who don't have parents. Their parents are like this all day, staring at the phone. They're not paying attention to their kids. The kids eat McDonald's every night because they're busy drinking or doing whatever. So the kids, what are they doing? Mom's not paying attention. So the kids are in the room like this, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. And then they start looking, and then they read it, and then they're listening, and they're like, oh. And that's how most kids these days learn. They're on this, or they're on the computer. And if I'm not telling my daughter it's not okay with what she's saying, this is what they're learning while they're on the computer. So they do play a role. And, you know, again, Carlos, I love you, baby. You know, he's interacting live crazy today. So I get it. I'm just saying, on the contrary, there are kids who this is role models, you know, when they see TV and they look at their phones. This is sometimes only who they have. Like, I have students who don't sit and stay home when they could leave at 3. They're still there hours later. And I'm like, go home. When I was your age, I just wanted to go home. But it's because they don't have a positive household. So what we show them in the building is all they got. So for some kids, those things are, you know, offensive, and that's what they're learning. Well, Carlos that's reiterated to Teresa. She said, I understand, but there are parents who try to tapar el cielo con una mano, and their kids end up going crazy once they turn 18. I know a lot of those too, so I get it. Go ahead, Zoe.
I almost lost my train of thought. So I think the other piece of this, and again, it's a little serious, but the problem with, okay, so if I had to dissect WAP and translate it into a clinical statement, we're celebrating a female's ability to, well, let's just say they don't need, whatchamacallit?
WAP.
I know. What is it? The oh my God, what people use for intercourse when they don't have the KY jelly. So you are, oh, you don't need a lubricant. So you have a natural lubricant Okay. And that is what they're saying, right? And so we're celebrating that about, a female, expressing excitement y yo no sé qué. And I think that's fine, but I don't think that that's balanced with the necessary conversation around condom use, around HIV. And so I feel like growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, like there was a lot of conversation about condom use and HIV exposure and STIs, sexually transmitted infections. And I don't think that there's enough happening in that camp on social media to balance a song like WAP, like WAP. And so that's dangerous. That's dangerous. And it's not just WAP, it's all songs, right? And I was even thinking about it, and I know Carlos is going to say something about this, but I just feel I was thinking like, in my grandmother's age, I know people in Puerto Rico, even in my own family, that in the 50s and 60s had multiple partners and children with multiple partners. And Cardi B was not around at the time. You know what I'm saying? So we can't blame, a WAP for what happens in terms of promiscuity and all of that. But I just think we need to have a good amount of information for young people to learn about the risk that comes with all of that,
I'm giving a thumbs up, Juliana. You're welcome. So listen, we got a question. I want you to answer this, Zoe. This is from a male. Is Cardi B's music necessary to counterbalance more male-oriented music like reggaeton?
That's a good one. I think Cardi B is unique. I am happy for her success. I really am. And I'm really happy that she's very real, that she's honest about who she is. That's what people love about her, that she's just honest. And I used to kind of be a little like, okay, that's not me. She's so different from me. Not that I'm a saint, trust me, and that's not what I'm saying. But, she's so different. Like, I don't vibe with her like that. And then I started seeing things here and there. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. And that's really funny. And I get it now. And I see her sense of humor. She's just being herself. And she just, no censorship. She's going to give it to you how it is. And I appreciate that about her because obviously, that moves mountains, right? Just being honest about who you are and what you want. So yeah, I mean, again, it's not a criticism of her. I think it's important to talk about reggaeton. Ponte el Condón by Daddy Yankee. I love that. We should do that. That would be hilarious. Like,
he says, it's not what sells.
No, totally. No, totally. I just, it's just dangerous. It's dangerous. And we have so much more exposure to, ideas around sexuality and all this stuff in the media. And I just hope that our kids are, and it's not just WAP, it's also reggaeton, like you said, and this has been happening for decades, and if you look back to, oh my God, some of these Marvin Gaye songs, right? Like some of these Marvin Gaye songs, let's get it on. Yeah. And even before that, because I saw like a documentary and they were saying like even in the 20s and 30s, you had males and females talking about sex in their songs, So this is not new. This is not just Cardi, but WAP was pretty damn daring. That it was a whole different level. I don't think anybody can I don't think anybody can argue with me about that. Okay. Pero but I'm not hating on her at all. I just wanted us to dissect that a little bit because women will ultimately be blamed, for whatever comes the way for acting a certain way. And when you allow a conversation about WAP, which essentially is about lubrication and sex and, put the truck in the garage, yo no sé qué más, that's the only thing I remember.
Oh, listen, she says, tie me up like I'm surprised. It starts by saying there's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
And that's a classic.
It is. They've said that somewhere else. I don't cook, I don't clean, but let me tell you, I got this ring. Like, listen, we've been telling our little girls since they were little, tú tienes que limpiar. Tú no vas a buscar un hombre así si tú no limpias, and they're seeing this like, whoa, So there's a lot of crazy lyrics in there. And I think at the end of the day, again, I'll reiterate as Zoe just said, we're not against it. We just thought that this would be fun to dissect the song because she's bold.
Yeah, and we need Carlos on here for sure.
Yeah, we do. My boy has energy. You'll be here all night with him. He's the best.
Little Kim in the 90s, absolutely. Little Kim and Get Your Eagle On. I mean, there's so many songs that you can think of.
There are so many songs that you could think of. I mean, women get degraded in songs all the time.
Right.
Men do it, women do it, we all do it. But I think kind of bringing everything back That's why Christine's comment is there. I think that a large part of the world sees us as savages, ghetto people, regardless. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was something that you were saying when we spoke about this, that like you like her, but you wouldn't want somebody who sees it, who's from your professional world, like you said, to see it and think, well, she's Puerto Rican and she's Latina, and that's what that girl does, and that's how she represents herself. I guess
Right.
that's how all them Latinos represent themselves.
Right.
They represent themselves that way. And two, looking at the video.
For the record, I was Cardi B for Halloween last year. I just want to.
Fun fact.
I'm not going to see the picture ever, but and actually, I don't know if Deshawn is still on, but she got to see it. My coworker, actually, she's really cool. I don't know if she's still on, but I was Cardi B. Like, I'm not trying to hate on her or anything like that, but I think that we should think critically about these issues, and they all really tie back to like the values that we hold, and what we teach our, society about who we are. And I think that, yes, you're right. Like, why try to teach people if they think that, we're less than anyway, to the former points. I get that, but there's a balance, right? Like, it's like, okay, maybe, I don't deserve to be treated differently if I dress a certain way. But what if I went with a mini dress to an interview? Like, tell me, you think that's okay? And so just because you analyze it, you think about it, and you second guess and try to figure out what makes sense, doesn't mean that you're against someone or that it's right to think that way. But perception is everything.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? So you could sit there and you can be as honest as you want to be, but people are always going to judge a book by its cover, and you have to figure what you have to lose. Cardi B is a millionaire, probably a billionaire. She ain't got nothing to lose right now, but you and I do. So if you try to put out a song about WAP, our career's over, boo. So people, that's privilege, right? And so she may be a brown woman. She may have grown up in the Heights or Kingsbridge. I forget where it was, Bronx or Manhattan. But she, she now has privilege. She now has access to things that you and I don't have access to. And she also has, I don't know if that's a word, but certain things are dispensable now because she has enough money and power.
Yeah, to be able to do that.
That's right.
Carlos said he needs to see a pic of you as Cardi. So we're going to have to show that out.
Definitely not on here, but yeah, no.
Ralph is impressed by your political analysis on this.
Oh, thank you, Ralph. Did you like my clinical definition?
That's right. Well, listen, I'm sure the people that are watching and normally watch, they're probably like, I don't know how this topic happened or how they got here. But I hope if you've been on here the entire time, you can actually see how all of it coincides. And I think
Carlos should be Cardi B's publicist.
I think if you've watched, hopefully you'll see, what we meant by each conversation, how all of it went together. I think just even looking at the video, if you haven't heard the song, but if you watch the video, you see them half naked, which
but it wasn't bad.
Huh?
It wasn't that bad.
No, but I'm saying just every video, like now with men, like the women are like boobies up, half, boobage out, culito out, and again, I hope they all showed people how all of this coincides because, that's how people are viewing women sometimes. Like, oh, I seen that Latina in all those videos. Ella tiene el culo pa fuera. Her boobs were out. Men do it in their videos. Women now, we're doing it in our own videos because it sells, But when you look back at abuse and everything that happens, people blame victims all the time. Well, she was walking around with that tiny little skirt and she had her boobs out. She clearly, wanted it. She was asking for it, and again, everything coincides. When I was in my relationship and I was being abused, those were things that he would emotionally put in my head. You leaving the house looking like that? Okay. Listen, we'll go back to that. What I said in the book and in the video, in the film, the day that I thought that I would kill him because he always hit me. I knew it was going to happen. He spent the entire night text messaging me. And that is where we got to me almost killing him because he spent the entire night text messaging me, telling me that what I wore to a wedding, okay, a wedding, I was not dressed seductively at all, made me look like a whore, and that he knew that I was out there looking for men, and that when I got home, he was going to beat my ass. So as per him, I looked like a whore when I left the house that day because of how I was dressed and the cleavage or whatever he could see. And because of that, that was why when I got home, I was going to get my ass beat. So if you're on here and you're wondering what is Christina talking about and why she has all of this, I thought it was important to talk about a lot of different things that kind of go with each other. You know, domestic violence happens in homes all the time. And a lot of times men say or women say, I did it because of this or that. I didn't like the way she dressed last night. So yeah, I hit her because she disrespected me by walking out the house looking like that. You know, so we've talked about a lot of crazy things, and I'm sure we could talk about it all night. Carlos is killing it right now.
I know, he's making friends too. Yes, Iris Chacon in the what, 1980s, 70s actually, I think. Iris Chacon, Puerto Rican. She used to come out in this thong and she would dance and stuff, and we all loved her. And actually, I used to like put my little bathing suit up between my butt cheeks to look like her when I was like 8. And that was acceptable, right? Because I was just modeling what I saw on TV and it was fine. But yeah, that was risque for the time. But I just want to say one thing is that you, myself, Carlos, you know, Juliana, like all of us today, some of us may be going through some of these things, but a lot of us also have a lot of privilege because we have a little bit more self-confidence, maybe a little more education, maybe we've been exposed to certain lifestyles. So, you know, even when we think it's common sense that not everybody's like Cardi B, even when we think that WAP is just a song, we don't know what other people are going to do with that information. And that's what responsibility is about, right? That no matter, you know, how you and I take something, we're also in a position of privilege because we have a little more education or we have a little more exposure. And it could be street smart. It could be formal education. That's not what I mean. I don't mean a degree. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I always think of, I can handle this and I know what to do and not to do with this song. But does a 15-year-old whose you know boyfriend is asking her to send him nudes? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how do we manage that? And yes, Cardi B should continue to be who she is, but at the end of the day, we know that, I hope we know that we still have a responsibility to make sure that that's well balanced with other information.
Exactly. Well, listen, it has been super, super fun. And I don't want people to be like, Jesus, ¿y cuándo estas mujeres van a dejar de hablar?
No.
I know.
And then Carlos is Puerto Rican.
So look at that. Look at that, Carlos.
Yes.
Carlos to be our pop culture correspondent.
Yes.
Listen, follow us as well, both of us, her and me, because we be on Bomba Live too. Don't forget about that. Follow us over there too. Carlos, we're gonna have to pull you onto that show too, because you're hilarious.
We have to bring Ralph onto this song. I mean,
yeah, we do need to bring him on here. Actually, Carlos, I'm sorry. There's so much going on all night, Lord Jesus. Ralph is actually who got me into doing this. He's actually the person who made me be so outspoken. He's the person who guided me through this entire journey of mine. He was the first show I was ever on, syndicated on the radio, talking about, you know, just love and my journey. He's been a part of my life forever. So he was around during that time when I was going through my abuse. So he has played a huge role in my life, and especially allowing to help me grow into who I am. So I'm forever grateful to him. So we have to come on here now so that we can exchange views, you know, so he can, you know, show people how amazing he is too.
He's also offered me the opportunity to be on different podcasts with him, and, you know, and now with the Mujeres edition, and he's always very supportive, and starting 7 years ago. And I keep hearing over and over again from different people, different age groups and everything, like how much of a mentor he is to people. Yeah. So I think that's pretty awesome. So kudos to him. And Carlos, I'm from Arecibo too, so we need to talk. And Beverly says this was great. I was going to be Christina and Zoe's agenda. I don't know what he said, Ray, but I think we should do this again. And
he's trying to be our agent.
He's trying to be our agent. Okay, let's do it.
Fun fact about Ralph: he was first of all, he's known me since the day I was born. My mother drove past his mother's house on her way home from the hospital. So he's known me since I was born. He was at my college graduation, and he gave me my first, he's so funny, all the comments. He gave me my first job as his intern. He was the first person I got on a plane with. So he's been a part of my life forever. So yes, he's definitely supported, and I love being his right hand and doing Bomba Live because Ralph is just amazing. So I thank him for that, because he definitely, Love Shouldn't Hurt is where it's at now with these shows and my confidence because of Ralph. So I do owe it to him. So I got to give him that props while we're on air. So I just want to take a minute to In front of everyone, thank you so much, Zoe, because this was so much fun. I had so much fun.
Absolutely.
You were awesome. Carlos wants you guys to follow him, so I got to put it up.
Hooked on Glow.
Hooked on CeeLo because he is a J-Lo fan. He's not playing.
Oh, he's serious. Okay. Well, I want to see the condom song by Daddy Yankee. Can we make that happen?
You got to make it.
Carlos, help us out.
Rob's putting me out there. I was shook on that flight. The flight was right after 9/11. Okay.
Okay. Come on. Yeah. And you were probably, that was your first, right?
It was. I was terrified. Somebody wants to know how old you are, Ralph.
Oh my God. How old is Rafael?
He's still young. He's just been next to me the whole time. Thank you so much, Juliana. But listen, I could keep going forever and ever. So I want to close out the show. I want to bring it back. I want us to go back to, where we started from the beginning. Zoe, again, thank you so much for being here because you're truly amazing woman, an amazing Latina, and especially listen, like you say all the time, mujeres poderosas.
Hey.
So I have to bring you on because you are a mujer poderosa, like in every which way. Ralph is 45 for those who are inquiring.
He told. He's
45.
The comment, like, this is awesome. Like,
Awesome.
interactive. I like that.
I definitely want people to know love shouldn't hurt. Friend, and without going through that, I would not have her. So, I get emotional. You see that? I'm about to cry. So that is why.
My mom does the same thing.
Yeah. So I definitely, this is my mission. This is what I do. I love shouldn't hurt. If you were here for the first time, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate the
You were running the show, boo.
I know, Carlos, you gave us that dialogue.
Yeah, he was here. I mean, he has a great picture up too. So I mean, it worked out.
Oh, he's fly, girl. He's fly.
I can tell. So.
Yes, Eugene said Arecibo all the way.
También somos tres. Okay,
that's right.
And I want to say, Christina, thank you for having me. This is a very I'm very passionate about this topic, as you could probably tell, and I know I get a little serious sometimes, but it is a really big issue. It's a serious issue in our community, and we perpetuate a lot of these stereotypes, and we feed into these cycles, right? And I hope that you continue to do this and that you do it proudly without explaining to anyone, right? Unapologetically, this is you, this is your story. And, you should feel really confident that, one, that you have the ability to tell your story, and that you have a platform that people support you. Y olvídate de esa negatividad, and, anyone who questions why you would have this show should not be in your circle, right? Period. Right. So I just want to commend you for what you do. When I saw the name in one of our Bomba Lives, I was like, oh, wow, this is wonderful. So I'm very happy to be part of this, and congratulations on what you're doing, and keep doing it. Whatever you need, let me know. You're amazing. And it was an honor to be on here. Thank you.
Thank you. You're awesome. So I just want to close out the show the same way that I started. 2 years ago today, I began this mission. I'm sorry, not today, 2 years ago on Monday. I began this mission on August 17th. An amazing person was lost. She was lost without her permission. And I say that all the time because someone decided it was their control to take her life from her. I started this mission for her. If I start to get choked up, that's because I do it all the time. But I hope that shows all of you that this is not for stardom. This is not for people to follow me because I cry for attention. I cry because it's real. Love Shouldn't Hurt is something that is just a part of who I am. It's made me. And it's not for show. I have people, who are positive towards it, and then there's people who are negative towards it. But like Zoe said, pa'lante siempre, because you know what? Like I say at every showing of our documentary, if I help one person and that one person is free from their violence, my mission, continues to be what it is today. So I want to remember from everyone here why we're here. We're here in memory of Linda Rios, who was taken from us 2 years ago at the hands of domestic violence. I hope that all of you, if you're going through it, you see at the bottom of the screen the line for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I'm sorry that I'm stumbling now because I get super emotional when I talk about this. Call them. If you are with an abuser during this time of quarantine and you feel as though you cannot, speak to them, You can chat, you can text them, you can talk to them. There are people, there are resources. We have people in the community. If you are in Philadelphia, we have Concilio, we have Congreso, we have so many different people. Women Against Abuse, we have Menergy for men, because yes, men who are going through domestic violence and are abusers themselves, people say that they can never change. I don't believe that. I believe if you wholeheartedly want to make a change, it can happen. So there's Menergy, who is out there for people who say, you know what, I'm an abuser, but I want to change. I want to make a difference. They
That's
are
right.
here in Philadelphia as well. So there's so many different resources. My mission is to find resources everywhere across the US so that people can always feel safe. I thank you guys for always listening, always being supportive, and just being here. Listen, if you have time, next Tuesday, August 25th, we will be here again. I will be joined by Michael Madre, one of my best friends. Because you know what? A lot of people wonder why we do this, but there's also people out there who were the friends who have lived through this with you. And I want to give that perspective. So if you want to listen next week, we will be here at 7 p.m. with Evelyn Ramos. She is one of my very best friends who lived through this craziness with me, but had no idea what I was going through. She thought she did. She wondered, but she was too scared to ask me if that's what I was going through. Would I stay with him even if she thought she's going to be abused? If I ask her, will she stay with him still? Will she resent me after those questions? So
Right.
those are the things that we're going to talk about next week. We're going to delve into that. So if you're here, hopefully you'll join us. I'm going to close it out tonight. We're both going to leave the screen. So I'm saying good night and thank you to everyone that's here. Like I said, I'm ending it just the way that I started. I want to put up Linda's picture and I'm having a moment of silence. And once the moment of silence is done, the screen will go black and we will be over. But I want to continue my mission of remembering Linda Rios. Have a good night, everybody.